My name is Abby Berg. I live in Matawan. I wanted to talk about the security measures that's going to be on the on our election. So after the meeting on Tuesday, I really went home thinking, like, something was missing, right? I was like, something felt like it was missing. I couldn't connect the dots. And then I realized that what was missing was this. And maybe my thinking is incorrect, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But 99% of the townships in this county, the township and the police department help pay for security because they understand that we need safety in our schools, and we live here, right? But our town said no. No, you, as the board members, have to ask everybody else in the town to fund this. And it makes me kind of wonder, why? Why is the town, and I feel bad for the board, because they handed you a big old pile of poo and said, sell it. And it's not fair, because if you say no, right, oh, they don't care about safety in the school, right? But if we say yes, then everybody's taxes go up and people freak out. And the police departments and the townships are like, not our problem. And I think that's really disrespectful to everybody who lives here. And I found it to be really offensive because it made me feel like, well, we'll have the contracts. We're going to tell you how much you're going to give us. This is what it's going to pay. Not only that, you're going to absorb the SROs, and we're not going to tell you what we do with the money that we're saving, and you're going to like it, and we're going to charge you 15% on top of it. So that's what I wanted to say. And if we're going to talk about security, I wanted to bring up drop-off at the schools in the morning. This school in particular, okay? You have the entire 6th and 7th grade standing in a big line for 25 minutes, exposed completely, okay? And I don't like to put things in the universe, but if someone wanted to do something, that's the time to do it. They're outside. Not only are they outside and completely, I mean, yes, there's a police officer here, a police officer there, but it's like Mad Max in the morning. I don't know if anyone's driven between the high school and the middle school. I swear, like, I am so happy that I have the front end of my car, like every single day, because I do both of the drop-offs, the middle school and the high school. Not only that, they're out there for like 30 minutes, and if it's pouring rain or snowing, they're just standing out in the rain. There's no at least the 8th graders have like the overhang in the front of the building, but there's nothing to protect them. So I think if we're talking security, let's make sure that's safe, and maybe can we get like an awning or just something so that these kids are not drenched in the morning before it rains and they get in. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing up the additional things that we should look at from a security standpoint, because I do agree there are other low-hanging fruit that we could potentially address security-wise in addition to Class 3 SROs.
I mean, I have a list. I can like send it to you guys. Just as
yes.
So I mean, not that I'm like trying to nitpick, but
No,
like as someone who has family who doesn't live here, who deal with security measures outside of this country on a daily basis, there are things that they teach me to look for. They're living in Israel right now. They teach me. My sister has been there for 25 years. So they're teaching me what to look for, you know, what to feel uncomfortable about. I'm not necessarily a good ruler because I am like pretty much scared of everybody. So I think everyone's trying to get me all the time. It's just one of those things growing up. I think as a religious Jew, you kind of get a little nervous, you know. But I think that if you guys want, you should reach out also to other people that maybe are not, who don't feel so comfortable, you know, because maybe a different perspective from people who are in a place where they can see different things would be helpful as well. To see what we really, really need and what maybe is not so necessary.
Thank you. Share those. Yes, thank you.
My name is Beth Brown. I live in the Cliffwood section of Aberdeen. I grew up in Matawan and attended the Matawan-Aberdeen School District. When it came time to raise my family, I chose to stay in town because of this school district. I'm also the mom of a transgender daughter and a gender-questioning child. Thankfully, my children live in a gender-affirming home. A study conducted by Katz and Wise in 2015 found that only 1/3 of transgender youth live in a gender-affirming home. 1/3 of transgender youth experienced parental rejection, and the final 1/3 did not disclose their gender identity to their parents until they were adults. My oldest child came out to me at age 16, at which time I found out they had been out to a group of friends for over 2 years. My child was afraid to come out at home over fear of parental rejection, as so many of their trans friends have faced. According to Ryan et al. In a 2009 study, trans youth that experience parental rejection have a 6 times higher risk of developing high levels of depression and 8 times more likely to attempt suicide. Let's talk about suicide risk in transgender youth. The Trevor Project estimates that 1.8 million transgender youth ages 13 to 24 seriously consider suicide each year, and that at least one transgender youth attempts suicide every 45 seconds. 2 studies by Johns et al. In 2019 and 2020 found that LGBTQ youth are more than 4 times more likely to attempt suicide as their cisgender peers. It gets worse. In a 2021 study by the Trevor Project, published in the American Journal of Community Psychology, identified 4 areas of stress that increase suicide risk for LGBTQ youth by 12% compared to LGBTQ youth not experiencing these same stressors. The stressors were discrimination, housing instability, physical harm, and change attempts by parents. Those are a lot of scary statistics about suicide risk in LGBTQ and specifically transgender youth. What can we do? Data collected in the 2023 U.S. National Survey on Mental Health of LGBTQ youth was analyzed by the Trevor Project. This survey contained responses from 28,524 LGBTQ youth, of which 18,378 were transgender or non-binary. The good news, 79% of youths surveyed reporting having at least one accepting adult in their life. Of those 79%, 19% still attempted suicide in the previous year. Of the 21% without a supportive adult, 25% had attempted suicide in the previous year. Notice I did not say that one supportive adult was a parent. It was just an adult. So what can the adults do?
Sorry.
Yes. Being transgender is real. Being abused, rejected, and being kicked out of one's home because they are transgender is also real. We are parents. We are supposed to love our children no matter what. If statistics show that only 1/3 of transgender youth are accepted at home, how can children not be nervous about coming out to their parents? As a school board, I'm asking you not to risk outing a child to parents who may not be accepting and increasing their suicide risk by 8 to 12%. I ask you as a school board to recognize the fact that having a gender-affirming teacher lowers suicide risk by 43%. The science is there, the research is there, the suicide risk is there. Please do not fail these children when they need you the most.
Hello, my name is Hannah. So I wanted to talk about the girls' bathroom over here by the gym, because both of the stalls, there's only 2 stalls in there, and neither of them have doors. Well, one of them has a door, and the other one, the door doesn't work. Because one time I asked to go to the bathroom, and the 8th grade bathroom was closed for some reason. So I came down here to go, and then one of the doors that like doesn't close, I was going to use that, but then someone walked in, so I had to go all the way around to the 7th grade wing to go to that bathroom, which was fine. And then when I got back to class, I got yelled at because, it took me a long time. I was out for 8 minutes. So I was wondering if the bathrooms could be fixed over there. Yeah.
What is the name of that bathroom?
With bathroom?
Specifically, what's the name of the bathroom you're referring to? Where's the location?
8th grade.
Well,
8th grade wing is the
No,
bathroom?
Oh,
the old gym bathroom, right? It's right across from it.
The old gym locker room?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you.
thank you very much for coming up. It's very brave of you. Thank you.
I appreciate her bravery, and I think there should be administrative responsibility about ladies' rooms and men's rooms, doors locking and closing. That's just totally irresponsible. I experienced that 50 years ago. I'm sure it's still going. It's not why I'm here. I wrote down a couple notes. First of all, I apologize for my appearance. I would normally shower, and I injured my head today. So
Oh,
I'm letting it dry, it's not bleeding, so that's why I look like I'm gonna get back up.
Sorry, can we just get your name and which
Oh, yeah,
town?
sure, yeah.
Sorry.
I'm John Potter, I live on Mill Road in, I don't. Okay, so, a couple of points. First of all, the children are already confused enough without sexual confusion. Forced upon it by social media, by the society, by their peers, and then, God forbid, by an organization that seeks profit.
Can you adjust your microphone? We can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a musician, so I live in fear of my ears breaking from an administrator yelling into the microphone, so I want to be cool. Okay, is that good? Is that too loud? Sorry. Yeah, so the first thing I just said is children are already confused enough. They don't need the addition of sexual confusion, just like the military doesn't need sexual confusion. It's bad enough, are they going to live or die? We need to know whether someone wants to date them. It's wacky, but that's grown-ups. It's a different story. Children really need to be protected. Children who are not parents need to be protected by parents. And adults who are not parents and don't have the best interests of the children at heart need to be kept away from. The children who are innocent and malleable and they have enough trouble, believe me. And I want to address one of the straw man arguments that I've heard a lot is that somehow transgender kids are the only ones being bullied, or that somehow that should be accepted or allowed. No one should be allowed to be bullied. I had a lot of problems as a kid. I was bullied. I had no father. My mom was a school teacher. She was never there, and I could have easily gone crazy and done something which, by the grace of God, I didn't. But I lived in fear and terror at school. I hated it just about every minute. And my mom wanted me to go to MIT or Harvard. Anyway, be that as it may, when you hear, oh, well, they're going to be bullied, and somehow that's just going to happen and no one's going to care, and no teacher, no administrator is going to stick up for them, no other children who are honorable, whether they're, of the same feeling, how would you really defend anybody? Just like I think anyone has the right to believe what they want to believe. This is America. And we can disagree without coming to fisticuffs. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to say, the school lunch thing is easy. I mean, I couldn't graduate without paying a $7 library fine when I was a kid. So this is ridiculous. $100,000 of stupidity in a wealthy area like Monmouth County, grade on a curve. If you live in my neighborhood or Homedale or somewhere, pay up. If you have a single parent family, and give them a ride. But there's no reason that's just insane. It shouldn't even be an issue. Also, the main thing is I refuse Phil Murphy's religious confusion, offering sexual confusion to children by decree, by signing by fiat, and somehow we all magically are supposed to agree with what is his religion. I think I established earlier, I don't know if anybody looked into it, but this whole business of changing your sex is an ancient religious thing. And the Establishment Clause of the Constitution forbids anybody from imposing their religion upon us. I'm a Christian. I'm not going to impose that on you. I'll say, hey, it's a good idea. Look into it. But you have to live your own lives. You have to make your own decisions. As a child, I have to protect my child. It's a whole other story about making your own decision when you're a child. You don't want someone to decide for you. And then, of course, I made some notes that I can't read without my glasses. I talked about the lunch. I don't like Phil Murphy's religion. Children are confused enough, God knows. Oh yes, of course, then the military, industrial, pharmaceutical community, who is only too happy to use tax dollars to operate and or give drugs to your child, which is ridiculous, starting with ADHD and then going right down to the sexual issues nowadays. I think that we have to protect our children from any machinery that seeks to profit from them. Thanks for your time. And I gotta say too, the guys, whoever you were or your predecessor did a great job. My kid went through the school system. We never had a problem. She graduated from an Ivy League university, and she's doing very well. So we've always had a good result from the people that were elected to this board, whether they be volunteer or paid. And I'm happy about that, and I think it's very important we have to put our foot down and say we're not going to stand for whatever this garbage is. We need to vote against any
Thank you.
encouraging of sexual confusion to children.
Thank you.
Erin O'Reilly, Cliffwood Beach, Park Aberdeen.
I have two children that are special needs. They have ADHD. My youngest has a lot of sensory issues. I'm here to talk about my oldest. He's in pulled-out resources, pulled-out PORs. He did not get the chance to go to vocational this year. That's a whole different story. That's a transportation issue. I'm not here for that right now. Right now, he's in, like I said, POR classes, and now he has to go into the electives. Now, I find it very weird that children that have special needs, there's no elective classes that are set up for children with special needs or for pulled-out resource rooms. He has to be expected to do the same amount of work as all the other children and held up to the same standards as them. There's no modification, there's no nothing. So he's struggling. He's literally failing. We had a whole discussion this afternoon with his case manager, and he's going to be taken out of one of the classes that he's literally failing in. And he was told that he's going to be switched out to a different class, and that class now it's already started, and he has to make up all that work. He's held to the same standards as everybody else. He's got learning disabilities. It's not okay. That being said, a few weeks ago, he was so upset that he was behind in all of his schoolwork. He couldn't go to school because his stomach was so upset. He had issues with his stomach. And he said, I would have no problem going to school if I could use the bathroom. All the bathrooms are closed in the high school, except for one, and there's a pass. And it's a 30-minute wait. He was afraid he was going to have an accident in high school. So I kept him home. I called his case manager. I called his guidance counselor. I emailed. I didn't get responses back for almost a week. I don't think that's acceptable at all.
If you could email me, it's nperez@marsd.org, so we can address your concerns specifically for your son at the high school, and we'll make sure we'll resolve them.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim Lindley. I'm from Old Bridge. I'm a former special education teacher, a parent, taxpayer. A few concerns I have regarding 576. One of them greatly, as a former teacher, is the communication between a parent and the teacher, that there's trust. A trust issue is at stake. That if a teacher or a parent doesn't believe the teacher because he's not sure what's going on in the classroom, that greatly affects the learning of the child. And then it doesn't make it easier for the child to come in, especially elementary. Middle school is a different area, but the elementary, the children all look up to the teachers. You're with them all day long, you're loving them, teaching them. And then they have to despite between the difference between the parents and the teacher, if they don't have to say anything. But another important aspect that I would like to read off of an article of the Mental Health Daily, it's about the development of the brain. The brain isn't fully developed. They were saying 25, some say 30. So also, there's a few things I'm just going to read verbatim from them and try not to take too much of your time. I just hit the quality points. And the brain is still mature, specifically known as the prefrontal cortex. Changing occur between 18 and 25, or essentially continued a process of brain development started during puberty. When you're 18, you're roughly halfway through the stage. The prefrontal cortex doesn't have nearly the functional capacity at 18 as it does at 25. This means that some people may have major struggles with impulsive decisions, planning behavior to reach a goal. The brain's reward system tends to reach a level of activation during puberty that gradually drifts back to normal activation when a person hits the age of 25. So that, the age where identifying oneself generally would be in the teenage years, as I'm sure all of you know or haven't had a chance. Also, the prefrontal cortex, some highlights that I would like to review is the attention. The ability to focus on one thing without ignoring distractions that function the prefrontal cortex. Those with attention deficits, ADHD, have abnormalities with the prefrontal cortex. So there's 4 topics I want to hit. Complex planning. The prefrontal region is responsible for complex planning. Anytime you set a goal that requires some degree of planning, your prefrontal region is at work. planning out tasks in your day, developing a business plan. This is a region is responsible and undeveloped prefrontal region, which means that your planning capabilities haven't been solidified. Another aspect that I want to get into is logical thinking. Justifying behaviors based off emotions rather than logic is common among teens. When the prefrontal cortex fully develops, illogical thinking simultaneously improves. This means that you would be better at rationalizing, making smarter choices. It also means that your ability to write and solve
Start
math
wrapping
problems.
up. If you can start wrapping up.
Oh, sure. So basically, there's a lot more information here, as you can tell, and it is beyond a teenager's comprehension. So we as parents are responsible for those decisions. So this just backs up scientifically, not just by a parent or how my views may be, but by the Mental Health Daily. So when you're asking a child how they feel, what do they feel like, you know, this just backs it up that they're not fully developed. They may still feel that way at age 25, but they may not. So thank you for your time and
Thank you.
efforts. I'm wrapping it up. Thanks.
My name is Patty, and I live in Matawan. I have 2 teenage boys that have gone through the Matawan system until recently. I'm also a teacher, and I've been a teacher for 23 years. I teach mathematics. I teach 8th graders for high school math. I think the bigger issue with everything is, you know, I know my students. I know who's dating who. I know every relationship, and I love them. And they tell me everything. But at the end of the day, I'm their teacher. I'm not their parent. And I think what this initiative really brings about more so is the state involving itself into, you know, maybe some parents may get upset with something like a transgender or something, but, you know, there's bigger issues too. What happens if the teacher doesn't want to tell me that my son's on drugs? Because that might upset me. It will upset me, you know, or that they failed their math test. Like my son got a 68 on his Algebra 2 test last week. I was really upset about it. But it shouldn't be up to the state to dictate what I know, what's being told to me. These are my children. I support them, I board them, I pay for them, I educate them at home. So I feel very passionate about when the state of New Jersey doesn't want to tell me facts about my own children. And as a teacher myself, I understand both sides of the coin of this. But again, they're these students that I love, that I'm with for years sometimes I have them for 2 years, they're not my own children. And it's really important, especially with where I hear every day at work, parental involvement. I work for the city of New York. We have 50 minutes of parental involvement time now, where I have to make sure I'm reaching out to everybody. So do I start to pick and choose what facts I tell the parents and what facts I don't tell the parents? It's a slippery slope here. That's my bigger thing.
Can we just get your last name? I'm sorry.
Good evening. Dan Finney, Aberdeen. As a board, it's really important that you discern fact from fiction and emotional arguments from logical reasoning. I actually have a son who committed suicide in 2007, and it had nothing to do with LGBTQ or gender dysphoria or anything of a sexual nature. But it did have something to do with mental illness. Heredity is connected to mental illness on my wife's side of the family, ex-wife. But it was a tragedy then. It's a tragedy whenever a child, harms themselves. But kids are struggling today for a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons is because of social media, over-sexualization, confusion, and a lot of other things. We really need to get back to basics. We need to love them through the truth and through helping them to learn responsibility, and that not everything in life goes the way they want. Anyway, thank you for your service. Nobody with a shred of intellectual honesty can say policy 5756 really offers a benefit or protection that is not already provided elsewhere for trans kids and certainly not the 99% of other kids. Lying to kids about the fantasy of changing sexes is as a solution to gender dysphoria or that they can create their own gender identity is grotesque. Lying to parents or teaching kids it's okay to lie to parents is diabolical. And affirming or celebrating a well-documented mental illness without question or diagnosis by teachers and staff that are completely unqualified in this area is beyond irresponsible. Further, the policy goes beyond accepting a child's ideas about gender to demand that teachers and staff affirm their gender identity without question. Most of these kids don't even have a clinical gender dysphoria. Rather, it is born out of social contagion, online influence, and now our local schools, if not stopped. This is an agenda-fueled movement encouraging kids down this path, and they are committing suicide after they start down that path. And you can start looking at the real statistics, although they're hard to find because of the narrative. And there was no narrative like this when my son committed suicide. Here's what's going to happen if you don't stand in the gap for our kids and take action. Many lives are going to be harmed physically and emotionally. And some of them are going to be suing the snot out of all the adults involved. Some are worried about lawsuits. The frivolous and unwinnable lawsuits from the state are not the ones you need to be worried about. You are going to have lawsuits, all right, and they won't be long in the coming.
If you can start wrapping it up, sorry.
How in the world do you think it is appropriate to put any teacher or staff in this position to practice medicine, because that's what it is, and involve themselves in this area completely out of the wheelhouse of public education? God help us. Not to mention that, they're not here all the time at school.
Thank you.
Again, districts across the state are taking action to repeal 5756, Howell Township and others just last night. And by the way, not one of them is replacing the policy because there's nothing value added in it. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Katie Williams from Mattawan. I have 2 children in the district. I am also a special education teacher currently for 17 years. One thing that keeps coming up, and I'm hearing repeatedly, is that it sounds as if people think that there's a curriculum telling children to change their gender, which is wild and false. Nobody is saying that only transgender children should be safe. In fact, every SEL program that I have ever worked with, which is a lot, over 17 years, speaks about protecting all children. All of them. Currently, transgender children are at a higher risk. And if you are afraid that your child is not telling you about their status, I think that some reflection needs to be made on why they won't speak to you. And as a parent of a child on the LGBTQ spectrum, I am grateful that my child was able to come to me, but if they weren't, I would be nothing but grateful for the people at school that kept them safe if I was not a safe place. Teachers have so much on their plate. Nobody is practicing medicine in a school at all, except for the school nurse. People seem to think that teachers can wave a magic wand. I teach 1st grade. I am lucky to get them walk with me in a straight line. I'm not trying to change anybody's gender, and neither are the teachers in this school district. All we are doing and all they are doing is being respectful and upholding the law. You're worried about lawsuits? That's going to come from the state if we don't do that. I don't understand that aspect of it. And I hope that some self-reflection on why your own children wouldn't come to you might help.
My name is Jennifer Woodruff, and I live very close by, but in Morganville, right over the Aberdeen border, and I'm a business owner in Mattawan. On behalf of the school district, the students and the parents, of the students here. We thank you for your service and your time and your efforts as board members. We appreciate it. I previously voiced my reasons why I'm against the 5756 policy, and rather than be repetitious, I'll just make some points. The 5756 policy was implemented in 2019, but was brought to everyone's attention recently, and now we learned that instead of it being a mandatory policy, there had to be a lawsuit that went through against Hanover Township to find out by the attorneys that it is just a recommended or a guide. So we now know that it's not mandatory, so we can talk about it. If you've ever read the 5756 policy, which I'm sure you all have because it's so controversial now and it's become in the news, you will find that this policy is a job in itself. The teachers and the administrators are to establish policies and procedures that are supportive to transgender students. This includes being familiar with the terminology used by advocacy and human rights groups on gender identity, along with other terms that the child may come up with to identify themselves. The teachers are to use these names and pronouns preferred to the child's gender expression. The student doesn't have to meet any threshold diagnosis or treatment requirements to have this gender recognized. The 5756 policy states that children have the permission to use the bathrooms and locker rooms of their expressed identity, can participate in sports of their gender identity, and are permitted to attend classes in their gender identity, even when the classes are purposefully separated by the two genders for privacy concerns and protection. Schools are not designed to be self-help areas, nor a place to find oneself. The 5756 policy seems to put control in the hands of the children and their ideology. When do teachers and administrators start taking orders from the children on how they want to be addressed and treated? And what about the majority of the children and their rights? When did the minority rule? This is so backward. There already is anti-bullying procedures in place. I don't know why we have to have this additional policy that is for a small amount of children that will probably outgrow this confusion and have been indoctrinated by the internet on this new ideology. Most children will grow out of it by the time they're 18. Many of these children have not even gone through puberty.
If you can start to wrap it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
A politician defending this policy and the sexual curriculum stated, the right of parents is not to dictate what children are taught, only to where they attend. Well, our taxes support public education, not private education. Unless the state allows a voucher system to send children to private schools in New Jersey, it's not affordable by most families.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Stacy Schiller. I live in Tinton Falls. I'm a high school teacher. I'm an educator. I consider myself an ally to the LGBT community. I've had a lot of interaction with students who identify as trans. Their stories are real, not ideological. They matter, and I feel compelled to speak about some of mine because I feel like their stories may parallel some of the stories of the transgender students in this district. I want to start by telling you about Kay, who was my student about 8 years ago. Before Kay transitioned, they struggled in school. In my class, their head was down, they turned in very little work, spent some time out of school getting treatment for suicide ideation. During the second half of the year, Kay came out to me as transgender in an assignment. We talked, established a chosen name and pronouns to use, and then something really miraculous happened. The very next class, Kay was a different student. Not just doing their work, but head up, participating, asking questions, engaging, learning. That continued for the rest of the year. I wasn't the only student that supported Kay's transition, but all of us created a space for Kay to feel safe to be themselves and for them to get an education and learn. Since then, I've had around 10 or so other transgender students, and they come out to me in various ways. And my heart breaks every time I see the pain in their eyes when they say, please don't use my name or pronouns when you talk to my parents. This year, I work with 5 trans students who I know about, and the difference between the ones whose parents support them and don't is drastic. Those with parental supports are honor students, challenging themselves academically, excitedly planning for their future. The ones that don't have support, I see them struggle, academically, socially, and/or psychologically. They've cried to me, they've avoided class because there's a substitute, and the substitute will use the name they don't want to be called, and so they're missing out on their education. As you already heard, the presence of one supported adult decreases suicide risk, and I often think it gives students a space to learn. All of these students are creative and intelligent and warm and sensitive, and they love to laugh, and they love to be teenagers, just like so many of the other students I teach. But my trans students also carry with them the knowledge that their existence is under attack, and that there are people in their community and elsewhere who don't want them to be safe. I've been teaching for almost 30 years. One of my very first years, an administrator said to me, if students don't have safety at home, they have to have it at school or they won't learn. It is my professional and moral obligation to make sure my students have safety at school. And I suspect that that's the intention of the guidance from the state on this issue, to make sure students feel safe enough to learn at school. I hope that you see that as your obligation as well, and don't enact policies that have the potential to take away their safety and their access to their education.
Good evening. My name's Carolyn, and I'm from Matawan.
Last name.
Matt. I'm one of the parents that's here in opposition to 57, 56. I think there's a lot of good reasons to oppose it. I think you've heard from a number of well-spoken parents as to why it's harmful. I think it's okay to disagree with children who, for whatever reason, I'd like to know where the idea comes from that a girl would think maybe I'm really not a girl, or that a boy would think maybe I'm really not a boy. I think to suggest to a child that maybe they really are the wrong gender is one of the cruelest things somebody can do. And then to suggest to them further that they can change their gender when we know that that is not possible. We are born one of two genders. We're either born XX chromosome or XY. XY is boys, XX is girls, and no surgery will change genetics. There are no drugs that will change that. There are no hormone blockers. There is no surgery that will change it. And to suggest to any of these kids, anybody who does that, just puts them down a dead-end road. And we are finding out that a lot of these kids later regret their decision. As one lady before me said, they often outgrow the gender dysphoria. To encourage the dysphoria with the suggestion that they can change their gender is incorrect. It is not science. It's not science-based. There is nothing, even in European countries, they are closing their gender clinics because they are finding that suicide actually increases with these kids after they've been through the, quote, transition that changes nothing. What they really need help with is, whatever the issue is, they need help from a professional. And I do also, there was a story in the news today, I don't know if you saw it, but it's a dad that is suing the New Jersey school district. He's the father of three in Cherry Hill. He has 3 Cherry Hill high school students, and he has filed a federal lawsuit against the school district and against the New Jersey Department of Education over its guidance on not notifying parents when their children request accommodations related to being transgender. In the suit that was filed October 12th, the father says the policy violates his 14th Amendment right to raise his children and make decisions about their mental health care. He says, I would feel pretty bad for a parent if their child lived a double life. He works in textile manufacturing, and he said everyone always says parents would be mad at the kid or beat up the kid, but I'd be so mad at the school that the school hid it.
If you can start wrapping it up.
Okay. So what else do I want to say here? Oh, there are other lawsuits being filed similar to this one in Wisconsin, where a judge decided that the schools violated parental rights by adopting a policy to honor a minor student's request to change their gender identity at school without parental consent. So I just want to remind you of the actual science, and also that there are lawsuits that are beginning, and there are students who went through gender transition who are now saying, where were the adults? They regret the decision. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dara Simon. I live on Myrtle Street, right over there in Cliffwood. So I really do appreciate what our school district has done for students. Trans people are not a huge part of our population, but they are a part of our population. And just because they maybe weren't known or really thought about 30 years ago does not mean that they're not here. They are here, and these people come to school, and what they want to do is they want to feel a connection. And this is where they come to. This is where we're supposed to educate people. Everyone. It's a public school. So it's not that we get to choose who we educate everyone. And these students, they should be able to come in and let themselves be themselves. That's what this is about. It's about learning. That's what school is about. I'm sorry, but I haven't had a teacher call me to tell me that my kid did their homework today, or that they got a 100. They call me when there's a problem. And if my kid is thinking and evolving their opinions about who they are, to me, that's not a crisis. That is them being them. If we really want to wait until they're 30 years old, maybe we should let them go to college. Because we are asking 18-year-olds what they want to be when they become, before 4 years of college. What do you want to be? Where do you want to go? And we let them make those choices. This is part of that. It's part of becoming yourself. Not everything you're going to go to your parents and ask them or tell them. You need to figure it out for yourself. That's being a human being. You have thoughts from the time you are old enough to go off to school. You have your own thoughts. You have your own opinions. And you have to be the one that defines yourself. That is not anybody else's job, even your parents. There are times you are going to not agree with them. And the school is not here to get involved in that. All they want to do is educate the child. So let's let them educate that child. Sorry, one more thing. We're not, yes, this policy does focus on trans people, but school is not just focused on trans people. We want everyone to feel equal. And for those that keep saying that trans people, when they get to be 18, 25, 30, have changed their minds, I'm just wondering, did you actually keep up with these people? Did you actually, find the person that was 13 years old who, had this feeling, who had these thoughts, and then check in with them 10 years later? Schools are not giving out hormones. They're not doing any of that. They're just here to support your students.
Thank you. Thank you.
Casey Baroka, Farmingdale Union President. Just to reiterate again, there are no staff members in this district attempting to convert students from one gender to the other. Second thing I want to posit for people is, teachers are mandatory reporters, which means, hypothetically, I'm required to call a parent, and a student tells me, I am deathly afraid of my parents. If you call them, the next call I'm making is to DCP&P. That's the cop showing up at your house to protect that child. I have to do that by law, or I lose my job. So this isn't as cut and dry as we're hearing. There's a bit of gray here. Now, I don't want to get into a back and forth politically, but the policy online states it was written in July or created in July of 2015, then edited in June of 2019. Now, I know there's people that were not on the board at that time. Was anybody on the board in 2019? I can't really remember that far. Oh, okay. Oh, so a couple. So I'm curious as to, were there any drastic changes to the language? And if there wasn't, it wasn't Phil Murphy's Board of Education that created this policy, it was Chris Christie's. So I think it's important that we have facts when we discern what we're going to do. So this can't be perceived as it's someone attempting to put forth their faith or anything like that, because if that's the case, then we have to go back to the Christie administration. And like I said, I'm not trying to get into a political argument, I just think we should have the facts as we need them. I also think it might be mindful to, we're having these open dialogues, but it's, the woman that spoke first talked about surveying students. This impacts students. Now, I'm not saying we should be surveying a group of elementary students, obviously, but if we're seeing these concerns in high school students, and I'll just use myself, short story, my mom couldn't stand me crying as a baby, so she stuck me in kindergarten at 4 years old. I left high school when I was 17. That means I was old enough at 17 to leave my house and go to college. No one's supervising me, doing whatever I want to do. Now, I understand that 17 in high school is different than 17 in college, but it's still 17. It's still the same brain. So if we're going to send 17-year-olds off to college, I think the least we can do, or 18-year-olds, is ask them their opinions as to a policy that impacts them directly. Now, I know we may need parental permission for that, because I believe that is something we have to do if we submit surveys. So it's just something out there. Like I said, I don't really have a dog in this fight. I don't live in this town, but I do work in this town. And the one thing that concerns me is when I hear that this district has an agenda pushing children in one direction or not, okay? I teach 7th grade math. Here are the conversations I have. I don't have a pencil. Okay, why don't you have a pencil? I forgot it. But did you bring your phone to school? Yes, so you can remember to bring your phone to school, but you can't remember to bring a pencil. Those are the conversations I have, in addition to how you add and subtract positive and negative integers. I am not having conversations about gender identity, ever. And if I did, I would direct them to the school counselor, who knows she's not a medical professional, and would then seek guidance from others. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Curtis. I'm from Mattawan. First, I'll
Last
echo
name, I'm sorry.
Sorry?
Your last name, I'm
Curtis
sorry.
Roynstead. So first, I'll echo my wife's earlier statements. Otherwise, it's going to be a very long ride home. I agree with everything she said. Two real quick points. I don't think this is necessarily a religious or a ideology issue that should really be before the school board. Let's face it, the state kind of threw this on you guys. I understand what it's like to serve on boards. You get all of the blame and none of the credit. That's the way it works when you serve on these kind of boards. The thing is, in this situation, it really comes down to a philosophical one. Do you think it's the school's responsibility to get involved with any of this? Or do you think you can notify the parents and let the parents raise their children? That's what it's all about. This is about taking rights away from parents and putting it on the school, putting it on the state. This is a very dangerous time in our culture when you really think about the ideology of that. Because it's taking the ability of people to raise their children the way they see fit, whether it be Muslim, Jewish, Christian, or otherwise, and it's putting it in the state. It's putting it on the board. It's putting it to the school. The other quick topic I'll say is, somebody had made the comment earlier about it not being part of the curriculum. I can tell you that it has creeped into the curriculum. My two sons, who are both now in high school, one of them in particular last year had told me he came home after he was told to choose a ribbon that determined his sexuality in public school. So he was told that he either chose the rainbow ribbon if he was part of the LBG community, a purple ribbon if he supported the cause, or he didn't get a ribbon. If that's not indoctrinating into the school, I don't know what is. So I can tell you that my wife and I, this was kind of the last stop of this. My wife and I had determined at that point it was just more appropriate, rather than fighting about this or anything like that, we actually pulled our kids out of the school district. They're both now in private school. My parents were so upset by the situation that they actually offered to pay half the cost for it, and here we are. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jose Luis Alcaraz. I'm a happy father of 3 kids. 2 of them are your students. I just wanted to say a few things very quickly.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Which town are you from?
Here, Matawan.
Matawan.
Yeah. First of all, I want to say that the dedication of the teachers to the kids is palpable, and I'm very grateful for that. Yeah, very, 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 very grateful. The students' achievements are proof, and whenever one of my kids has fallen behind, the effort that the teachers put to get us involved and get my kids up to par, it's amazing. I'm really, really impressed. Clearly, every single one of the teachers, board members actually care. And that, to me and my wife, and I think in general, everybody feels it. We're very happy about it. However, to me, I come from a different country, and my experience growing up in that country versus what I see right now, seeing my kids educated by you guys, there are some differences that I've noticed. Amongst them, I believe that whenever there's a serious issue, it looks like the first step of people here is to get some sort of authority involved, is that instead of just going into more, just talk to the parent, get them involved as soon as possible, make them part of the team, okay? And it seems to me that this policy is doing that precisely, and I disagree with that. Things that seem to be very important, like being bullied or academic achievements, etc., the parents are involved relatively quickly. Something more serious, there seems to be this type of situation. I don't like that particularly. However, I haven't had any major issue, thank God. But this is my experience coming from a different country and what I see. Look, what can I say? The freedom to raise each kid, okay, and the way in the family, in the nuclear family's ethics, values, and morals are the right of that family. Those 2 parents, one parent, doesn't matter. That's their right. I believe that when people say parents' rights, it's really a misnomer. Parents' rights equal family rights. Family is the basic unit of our society. Don't forget that. And like I said at the beginning, we feel and we recognize that every single teacher, board member, really care for our kids. But to stress, they are our kids. Family, parents, mom, dad. Okay? So that, I think, is very, very important. And just one last thing, to make it clear, social transitioning is iatrogenic events. And that's what's being seen in different countries, and that's what the studies show with transgender events in children or minors. Thank you.
Has everyone had a chance to speak once? It's been almost an hour, so it's almost double what we said, so I think we're going to wrap it up based on what we said earlier. Okay. So unless you have a different topic or if someone hasn't spoken, we're going to move on to taking action. And before we take action, I just do want to say, I know I've said this at the past 4 board meetings, but we really are listening to all of the emails, all of the people that come here and speak. Obviously, you can tell from tonight, it's a very sensitive topic. It's one we are discussing quite a bit amongst ourselves as well as with our lawyer here to understand the risks, because there are, as someone stated, lawsuits. They're actually on both sides. So we need to understand that, because all of us, the taxpayers in this town, will be responsible for that if we are sued, if we don't follow the law. So we are evaluating a lot of things. I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, I just, to speak to the litigation, the board has to make the decision, and as the board has said many times, and as many of the audience members have recognized, that it's in the best interest of the district and the students. And I just will point out that in a situation like this, it's the underlying issue of the policy itself is clearly complicated and difficult. But on top of that, there's other concerns like finance and the costs that are associated. And I think it's clear that the board is taking all of that into account as well. So there's multiple legal issues and financial issues in addition to the underlying issue that the board is dealing with.
Right, and we are having a lot of discussions. We want to get it right, so we're taking our time. We do not want to rush it and make a decision that isn't the right decision. So we are taking our time, so thank you for your patience with this. Just so you understand from a process standpoint for the board, when it comes to policy, once there is a policy or an update on that policy, it is put on the agenda, which is on the school's website each week, right before each meeting. Policy goes up for first read, where it's, we discuss it, any questions, comments. Then right before the second read, it's actually shared with the public so that you can all come in or write in and give any feedback on that, like what you think is right, wrong, come ask questions before we take a vote and that policy becomes, the policy that we have. I mean, we can always revise policies, but it does a first read and a second read. So just wanted to make you aware, and when those policy reads happen, we will make sure those are public, that we alert you to the dates of those, if they have an agenda. That being said, now we are going to take action on curriculum and instruction, student services, personnel, plus the walk-in item on personnel and finance.
Ms. Biles?
Yes.
Ms. Gershner?
Yes.
Mr. Montone?
Yes.
Ms. Pell?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Burrow?
Yes.
Ms. Warning?
Yes.
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mrs. Gould?
Yes, abstain personnel number B8, line 3. Now we're going to move to unfinished business. Yes, that's
I don't know if this is unfinished or new business. I wanted to, I think it's unfinished because I think I'm asking again. There are other policies that we want to talk about, and we typically do it for the public's benefit. We typically do these ones as a four-person policy committee. So I think, so the subjects, so everybody knows, there's lunch debt and naming rights or naming procedures. And I'm talking about naming of like buildings, fields, things of that sort. Dress code and substance use, specifically talking about vaping. So I think we're okay on lunch debt. I think we have 3 now in addition to myself, but just looking for any other volunteers for space naming, dress code, or substance use. If anybody just wants to shout out, hey, I'll write it down now, or... Wow, thank you. Okay, all right, so, awesome. Great, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so basically everybody's volunteering.
You have me any down, right?
Yes, I do, yeah. Thank you, okay.
Any other unfinished business? Yes.
Just a quick question to reiterate about the lunch debt. So there's 2 issues, I think. One is that it doesn't appear to be that these lunch accounts and arrears have to do with reduced price lunch, right? It's just maybe an oversight from the parent or guardian about paying it.
It's mostly a la carte items that are being paid
Okay, so just to be clear, these are items that may be part of the policy to discuss. If there is a negative lunch balance, the student would only be allowed to purchase lunch and not snacks and ice cream and soda and other drinks and things like that. So that's one. And then the second, sorry.
If you go on school, pay school, and you go ahead and go on the app, you can always restrict what they purchase, or you can email C-Grant at MARSD and tell her what you want your restrictions to be, because you can always see what they're purchasing.
And we have worked with Charville in terms of trying to help that as well, right? Through the years in terms of restricting the extra little goodies that they go up and try to purchase, but it does sometimes go through, but we have had conversations, so that's why we want to try to find other solutions, because the bills are getting too high. And we don't want to hold the children back, into it, because it's really not a 6-year-old's, fault if their parents aren't paying their lunch bill.
So, and then a follow-up to that is, I know that somebody on the board had brought up about it's a little complicated to fill out the reduced price lunch form. Do we know if that's one of the reasons, or is it really just people who maybe are just overlooking the payment?
With COVID and it being free, if everybody kind of got in the habit of filling out the forms, if they need to, they can always go on Pay Schools and fill it out, or there's a 1-800 number that's available 24/7. Or if you'd like a paper copy, you can always call the business office, or every school has a copy of it, and you can always call the business office and we can assist you in copying it.
One thing related that I do want to point out too is with the pay schools, with the lunch accounts, they do send out, look at one for my daughter who graduated because I forgot to take her name off, but if you have a low balance, so not even in arrears, so there are emails constantly going out if you're under $5 or whatever it is. So it's not that they're not, the parents aren't being told, they actually are being told quite a bit. So I'm just putting that up.
So for the last many years that I've been here, I've always done part of the lunch policy and been part of the committee, and so the first thing we always did was go through it and make sure with the BA that we didn't miss families that were not able to afford, and we made sure they signed on. And then everybody who thereafter, the people that we knew needed to be told or just didn't realize, or whatever the reason being. But because of COVID, there was a long break where people were eating for free, so we really got behind in our process of keeping up with it. So it's going to be a little harder now just because it's gotten a little bit past us. But any help from the community, and then like we said, the first thing is to make sure that everybody on that list is on, if they're supposed to get services free and reduced, to make sure that is. So just unfortunately, I don't think that's a huge chunk, but moving forward, we're going to start working on that again. So let's hope we can get it done. And maybe Ms. Lindsay can help us with that. Well, we're definitely going to need your help with that because of the free and reduced and whatnot. So, thank you.
Any new business? Ms. Silas?
Just as an update, the Cultural Awareness Committee submitted our calendar with accompanying information to involve leadership for review. So by next meeting, we should have something ready to take over.
Thank you. So then we are going to move into executive session. Be it resolved that a closed session be convened for the purpose of discussing privacy, personnel, and attorney-client matters. The subject matter of these discussions will be disclosed to the public when the reason for confidentiality subsides. Although the board cannot guarantee it, the length of the executive session is estimated to be 30 minutes, after which the public meeting of the board shall reconvene and proceed with business. Action will not take place. Can I get a motion and a second to enter exec?
Second.
All in favor?